We are back with another episode of the Trackside podcast, but this time we're missing one familiar and rather talkative face. Mr. Benjamin is not with us today. He is unfortunately on holiday, we believe. Is he on holiday? He's on holiday.
Yeah, he went this morning, I believe. I believe he went this morning, or he went at some point.
Midday, yeah.
And midday. And as you can see, it's a change of scenery for me as well. I'm very relaxed at the moment. Very relaxed after a very hectic Canadian Grand Prix.
Hello guys, I'm so sorry that I'm not on the podcast this week. It is my first time. 34 episode streak comes to an end that I'm not with you, and I do apologise for that, but I still thought I would give you my take on the race this weekend.
Obviously, Ollie, no F2 this weekend, no feeder series. Would you want to see the feeder series go to Canada, actually?
I think it's one of those where, although I don't know, I love Montreal. The track, the Gilles Villeneuve circuit is brilliant, and I love racing around it on the F1 game. It's one of my favourite tracks to race around. Obviously, that's the closest experience I'll ever get to actually racing on itself. I mean, hopefully not. Hopefully that changes many years down the line with this podcast and everything. But I love the track, however, and I think it would be brilliant for the feeder series to go there. But I do think that because of how small the paddock area actually is, it wouldn't be accessible for both the Formula 2, the Formula 3 and the Formula 1 circus to all be there. Because, I mean, you've got the Porsche support races there, but even then I think that's still too much. So, unfortunately, I think it's one of the many circuits on the track that probably can't habilitate the Formula 2 grid as well as the Formula 1 grid. So, yeah, unfortunately, no feeder series this weekend, so we're going to talk about that. We might touch on IndyCar towards the end of the episode. But yeah, for the first time in, it must be almost 40 episodes now.
It's the first time ever.
First time ever.
Ben isn't here. And we all have personal lives away from this, and there's been many times where I've missed it through personal reasons. I was on holiday for, I think, an episode last year as well, so it balances it all out. Ben will be back. Of course he will be back. Ben loves it. It's like his child. He has to always be here. But we've had a 2-week break from a very interesting Monaco Grand Prix, and there was a lot of off-track gossip. Now, we are into the start of silly season, as we know, and a lot happened off-track that we weren't really expecting. Now, I want to start with the comment I made about Esteban Ocon that turned out to be true. Because if we remember last week, I turned around and said, Esteban Ocon is getting sacked. And Ollie, what was it, 24 to 48 hours after the Monaco Grand Prix, what news came out of the Alpine paddock?
Well, Alpine and what's their team principal's name? Faman?
Yeah, I think so.
Faman. Anyway, the Alpine team principal has made the decision, and the Alpine team made the decision to drop Esteban Ocon for next year, which is obviously massive for the team because it seemed like he was kind of their chosen driver going forward instead of Pierre Gasly. But yeah, he's been dropped from the project. I mean, obviously you saw it.
Apparently it was by mutual decision, but I think that's very much them putting it on the table going, this is happening, you either like it or you don't. Deal with it. And I think it's a very rash move I feel like it's a very rash move that's happened because it's reactionary maybe, but at the same time, has Ocon been performing in Alpine? You'd say better than Gasly. But it also damage cost does come into it as well. How well a driver is perceived by the team. But yeah, very, very big news. Also, some other contracts that we thought were maybe going to be up.
I was going to say on that as well, just another kick a man while he's down. He actually got chucked out of his car for FP1, didn't he? Jack Doohan was put into the fold. And well, obviously FP1 wasn't really much of a practice session, but
No.
Jack Doohan got thrown in Esteban's car as well, not Pierre's, and it's almost like kick a man while he's down. But I mean, let's just have a quick discussion on who do you think is going to take the seat.
I don't know.
I've got two in my head.
Is it going to be an F2 driver? That's the question.
Mm.
Or is it going to be... No, we know who it's going to be. Schumacher.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Absolutely going to be Mick Schumacher. Obviously, racing in Le Mans this weekend for the Alpine team. He has a very good relationship in that team with the company overall. So, could be a very big move. Could be a very big move.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Will, but he is doing really well this year as well, isn't he? Well, not really well, but
the Alpine team isn't doing bad in the WEC, but he is one of their golden boy drivers. He is highly valued in that Alpine team, and I think that Alpine are definitely leaning towards. I couldn't think who else they'd get in it, because would an F2 driver be much better? I don't know. I think.
I was watching Formula 3. I was watching FP3 on the Saturday afternoon in the UK. Obviously, it would have been Saturday morning in Canada. But I was watching FP3 then, and they had Jack Doohan on commentary. Obviously, Alpine Academy driver, test driver for Alpine. So again, another driver that could go in to the team. And he was saying on commentary that a load of pictures are floating around social media during the Monaco race of Jack Doohan speaking to Faman, the Alpine director, and there were loads of things speculating like, oh, Jack Doohan's going to be in the Alpine seat for next year. But Jack Doohan actually came out and said, that's totally false. We're actually talking about Kushmini, who's the Alpine Academy driver in Formula 2. So you never know. Obviously, Jack's there as a support driver, as the reserve driver for Alpine. Mick's doing his thing in WEC, and then you've got Kushmini in the ranks in Formula 2. So I guess you've got three youthful options there. Whether they'll go for an experienced name, then we don't know. But yeah, it could be quite an interesting one. But another contract renewal, and perhaps the biggest of the three, or not contract renewal, another contract talking point, perhaps the biggest of the three, being Sergio Perez.
Now this was shocking. This came out, and I think I think you have to look at your phone and really think: is this actually true, or is this someone pulling our leg? Like, is this? No, it is the actual official F1 account that's posted this. Brilliant. I don't know what they're thinking, because we'll get on to his race weekend as well. But oh my god, I think he has to go, surely. I don't know how much more. I don't know what he has to do to get fired. To lose his seat, I don't know what he has to do.
Well, what's interesting is, as I think it was Karun Chandok was saying over the weekend, it's like, it's not just the fans now that are speculating this. It's the fact of people actually in the know are speculating it as well, is the fact of the only reason that they've kept him on is because he gives Max an easy route of winning. Like, he's just going to lay down and let Max win. And, I mean, Karun actually said that on Sky commentary, which was, I mean, you don't really hear that a lot coming from pundits. They usually call neutral and reserved. We'll come on to
really. I mean, we've seen some very strong punditry this weekend, haven't we?
Yes, we have indeed. But yeah, I think that point from Karun, coming from perhaps one of the most experienced pundits, not in terms of experience whilst driving, but experience in actually speaking about the sport itself, and actually having Karun's knowledge of the sport is just phenomenal, by the way. But yeah, his knowledge and interpretation of everything of the sport, from coming from someone of that pedigree in the paddock, I mean, that says a lot. And I think Christian Horner's kind of said it a little bit as well in interviews that he's done. He's kind of said, yeah, the only reason we kept him on is because he's the easy option. We know he's going to let Max win, and he's not going to give him a fight. Which is, it's as a fan of the sport, it's like, we don't want that. We want someone that's going to fight the best of the best. We want someone that's going to provide entertainment, not just lay down and give their teammate a free win. So,
we like the inner team battles. We like that you're allowed to race them. We like that because then you see drivers really think, okay, do I go for personal gain here or team glory? And yeah, I was baffled to see this. I think we all were like, we were all expecting Perez's time in Formula, well, maybe not Formula One, but in a Red Bull seat to be very much over. And the fact that we have another year of it makes you think, like I said, what does he have to do? What does he have to do? But yeah, I don't get it. But also, you said about punditry. You said that they were very harsh on Perez. Ricardo did not want to look on social media at all this weekend, did he?
No, not at all, especially after the comments made by the 1997 F1 World Champion Jacques Villeneuve. Obviously, had some very strong comments to say about the Australian driver. Now, I know I've come out on this podcast many times this year, especially, and said Danny Rick's just in there for the PR move. All he does is bring in money. Now, I still stand by that.
For someone else to say it though, basically as well.
No, but I think my point's a valid point, right? I think my point's fine. I think Villeneuve took it 1.2 or one step too far. He kind of, the way that he spoke about it was that Danny Rick hasn't done anything his whole career. I think he said something along the lines of he's always beaten drivers who are on their way out or who aren't at the peak of their powers, which, I mean, you look at it.
So what his exact words were is he was beat in 2014. He was beating a past it Vettel that was leaving anyway to Ferrari, so didn't care. He then was beating at first in the Red Bull seat in 2015, who then ended up losing that seat to an 18-year-old Max Verstappen. And then at Renault, he was up against Ocon.
Was it Hulkenberg?
Hulkenberg. Was it Hulkenberg? I think it was either one or the other. It might have been one or the other. I know that Ocon was there at the same time as him, I think. Because it was 2019 Ocon was there. And that's when Danny Rick was there as well. And then he was up against Norris, a very rookie Norris. So, in some ways, you look at it and you go, well, yeah, there isn't much competition there. But if you look at the drivers now and where they are now, it's very harsh. And this wasn't like speculation or this, like, it couldn't be worded out of context. This was said live. This was said live in build-up race, or was it?
I think it was in between sessions on the Friday. But yeah, it's kind of like I know my points are very much like he's in the seat at the moment for the PR. He shouldn't have come back to the sport. Liam Lawson deserves that RB seat instead of him, and I still firmly believe that. But to say that his whole career he's been fighting against people who aren't at the peak of their powers, I think is very unjust. Because in the Red Bull, when he first joined, obviously in I think it was 2014, it was his first year in the Red Bull. He outperformed Vettel, who'd just gone and won 4 championships. And yes, Vettel was trying new things, trying new strategies to win, but you still can't discredit that he's just beaten a 4-time world champion. And I mean,
it is impressive.
As his career's gone on, yes, he's not made the best career moves for himself, so he hasn't helped himself a lot, but he was still a good driver up until maybe the last year and a half of his time at McLaren. And then obviously he's come back now, and it's kind of like, we know you're all there for the money, and it's not nice to see. Again, it's one of those things. It's not nice to see because it's like there are so many drivers in the ranks that probably deserve the seat more. But the fact that he's there, obviously, we don't know whether he's going to be there next year or not. There's not been anything confirmed about his contract, but his current teammate has extended his contract. Yuki Tsunoda stays at RB for another year, which, I mean, I said at the start...
I think it's fair. I think it's fair. Like,
do you not think he deserves that promotion to the Red Bull? I said at the start of the year I thought it was going to happen. I thought that Tsunoda was going to have a really good year and get promoted instead of Perez. But obviously,
I don't think he. The thing is, I don't think he's done enough to earn the promotion, but I don't think he hasn't done enough to lose the seat. So I feel like it's just very like years. Like, okay, yeah, that's fair. It's not like you've been horrific. Not like you've deserved to lose it, but have you deserved it to have it long term or maybe go up a rank? Probably not. But yeah, in terms of off track building up to this weekend, it's been very interesting to say the least because of I think of some weird decisions. And the last thing we need to talk about before cars even go on track is there is still a Mercedes seat up for grabs. And Toto Wolff has said that they want to prioritise. What was it he said? They want to prioritise Antonelli. They want to push Antonelli or monitor him.
I think it was something along the lines of that, but it was also something along the lines of we don't want to risk losing him. I think
it was very much.
We said a few episodes ago. God, we're not at the start of the year anymore. We said at the start of this series that obviously Mercedes lost the chance of having Max Verstappen in 2016 and 2015, and they don't want to risk losing out Antonelli, who's meant to be this next big prodigy.
It's a similar story.
We said in our last episode, Will, that, or you actually asked me the question, do you think Antonelli's, or what's going on with Antonelli this year? And I have said that, yes, he hasn't hit the ground running with the Formula 2 cars, but then again, you look at his teammate on the other side of the garage and Ollie Beerman in the Prema as well, and Prema just don't seem to be anywhere this year. So I think, yes, it could be down to the car and the fact that the car's not tuned correctly to how the drivers are trying to work it. And other teams have obviously hit the ground running with these new regulations in Formula 2. But at the same time, he's had a few incidents where you're like, don't think that's going to work. So,
oh my God, I can't believe you've just said new regulations of Formula 2.
Oh my God,
and we haven't even spoken about the massive talking point, which is the new regs of Formula 1. How have we forgot about that?
Not a clue. But you obviously done TikTok.
Antonelli part, I don't know. I don't know what you make of it. Do you think that? Carlos Sainz is available now. We still know he's searching. There's speculation about Williams, but does Sainz think realistically? Because I think what Sainz is thinking is, I need to make myself as available as long as possible for Mercedes. And then, if they don't want me, I'd then go to Williams. Because surely that Williams has to be your backup. It can't be your first choice.
But then a team's also just, I get the whole thing of, right, I'm going to wait myself out. I'm going to wait for teams to approach me. I get that. But at the same time, it's kind of like other teams are going to be closing the doors pretty quickly. Like, they're not all going to be after you. Like, you need to kind of get your foot in the door before they slam it shut in your face. So, yeah, I think Sainz is playing a risky game. Obviously, I think he deserves a seat. And I said at the start of the year that in my predictions, I said that he's going to be out for 2025. He won't have a drive at all, but then in 2026, he'll be without it. That's still maybe on the cards. And I mean, it's certainly looking more and more likely as the season goes on. But as you said about the 2026 regulations, we need to speak about them because it looks interesting. Now, you've done a TikTok about it, obviously, and you've spoken about what you think the cars are going to be like. Now, they've made them shorter, narrower. They've removed DRS. They've they've reduced the amount of work you can do on the underbody of the car, and it's
Got rid of active aero is more prominent, and the cars are going to have less downforce, which really does bring into the fact of actual driver ability.
Yes. Now, obviously, a good thing about it is a lot of people been comparing it to the 2006 McLaren. Like, the front images look identical to how the 2006 McLaren looked. Now,
Yes,
I'm all here for that. I'm all here for that. We've been saying for years, and you said it in your blog, that you need smaller cars to go around these circuits that are more traditional and are narrower, and that's fine. But a few drivers have reportedly come out and said that in the testing of this new car in the simulation, the cars are actually slower than the Formula 2 cars, which makes you think, like, what have they got on? Or they're not slower, but they're on a similar speed, and it's like, I don't know whether that's a good thing, or I mean, it's not a good thing at all, because then it's pretty much like, surely Formula 1 and Formula 2 will then be in the exact level playing field. But
what difference is it?
obviously, they've probably not done a lot of testing in this, and obviously it's only simulation, so you never know. But at the same time, it's kind of like,
It's because they've removed some horsepower and added in more electrical power, haven't they?
yes, which to be fair, I think is a good thing. I think the fact that they're going more sustainable, obviously they had this whole
This has been the plan for a long time. This is
net zero. Is that the plan that they called it?
The net zero is the plan, and they have to slowly build that way. So this has been coming for a while. That they're obviously always going to make it more. They obviously don't want it to become Formula E, but they don't want it to be guzzling fuel 24/7 sport. You know what I mean? But I didn't know that. That could be quite bad.
Yeah, I think it was Lewis Hamilton actually that said something along the lines of, "Yeah, this isn't quick at all," which is fairly worrying. But obviously, we've still got another year to develop on it, and I think they can only start in, I think it's February next year that they can actually start developing on
cats
next year's car. So on the 2026 regulation of car. So obviously, it's going to be quite interesting to see what approaches teams take. But I think the fact that they're bringing smaller and narrower cars, I'm all here for it.
And I think that is about everything that's happened off track in the build-up to the Canadian Grand Prix. So, shall we move into starting with some of the practice sessions?
I think we should, yeah. Let's move on to the F1.
Yeah. Now, as you said earlier, F1 wasn't really much of a... The practice was very weird. We'll go over practice because it wasn't like a normal practice, because, like you said earlier, F1 was just a water park. The first two practice sessions, that Friday, was a write-off for teams. That was one of the wet, like, this was 2011 Canada wet. It was that bad. Which meant that when FP3 rolled around on the day of quality, you normally have a rubbered in track by then, and we didn't have that because of the amount of standard water that had been on the track, which made it very interesting to see who was going to get up to speed quick enough for qualifying, in my opinion.
No, it's the first. I might be mistaken, but I think this is the first time this year that we've had a wet weekend fully. And I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of things said over the past few years about, they don't use the super wet tyres. They just red flag it if it gets too wet, which, I mean, you have to take safety into consideration. I think the examples that people use are always around street circuits, which you think street circuits in the pouring down rain, never really going to work. But it was nice to see some cars go out on track across the practice sessions. Obviously, as the day went on the Saturday, it kind of dried up a bit more. And especially in time for quali, which we'll get onto in a second. But yeah, no, I think it was. I guess it was quite fun to see the rain again. We hadn't seen it in a while, and I mean, the times that cars were setting down, especially in FP3, which was more representative, because I mean, FP2 was a bit of a write-off, not really, but FP1 was totally a write-off. I mean, poor Jack Doohan, we mentioned him just a minute ago, and I mean, he hardly got a run in, but the Mercedes looked quick. The Mercedes looked really quick. Now, I think the best way to do this might be to go team by team throughout the whole race weekend, because
I think that is the best way to do it, actually.
Because I think every single team had something different going on this weekend. So I think that's the way we're going to do it this week. Obviously, we chop and change how we do it pretty much every single week. But let's start off with Mercedes.
I think that is the best way to do it, because considering the Grand Prix was entertaining, but there wasn't many flashpoint moments to talk about. It was more, each team had their own, like you said, each team had their own element of the Grand Prix to mention. So yeah, start us with Mercedes, Ollie. Go ahead.
So obviously on I think it was Friday. Yeah, it must have been Friday. The FP2 session. Lewis and George look quick. Now it's been a thing this year when the Mercedes always look quick in practice, and then we kind of bit like, oh, okay, is the Mercedes back? So you're telling me there's a chance? And there was. I mean, quali, George Russell set pole. I mean, literally dead heat. Him and Max at the exact same time, which was a 1:12 dead, which is really weird, by the way. How many times you see a lap time that's like 1 minute, exact amount of seconds, and then dead? Usually it's like 0.789 or 0.732 or 514.
I think the craziest thing about it was that is only the second time we've ever seen the exact same time set between P1 and P2. And obviously, as the rules go, whoever sets it first keeps the lap. But I mean, we all know F1 is a matter of margins. Like a thousandth of a second can separate you. And the fact that they couldn't be split after 1 minute and 12 seconds is just so bizarre.
Well, I think one thing to quickly mention before you carry on there, Will, is the fact of did you watch Ted's Notebook after quali?
I didn't. I was at work.
What was really funny about that is the fact that Ted said someone in that timing tower, because I didn't know this. So on the graphics and actually how they officiate Formula One is that it goes down to a thousandth of a second, and that's the like point where it's cut off. But apparently, in the timing tower, it goes down to a 10,000th of a second. So there's one digit that should categorically be on the end of that three numbers after the decimal point. So it should be
really
0.4567 instead of 1 minute 12.456. So someone in the timing tower at Montreal knows exactly who set the fastest lap, but the rules state that it only goes down to the final three to a thousandth of a second. So yeah.
Wow.
So someone in the timing tower in Montreal knows who the actual pole sitter was. So you never know. It could have.
Who do you think it was? Who do you actually think it was?
See, now I don't know, because I've watched. Do you watch those things? I mean,
the onboards.
I don't know how. No, not the onboards. Like these. I'm not sure who they are, but these social media accounts do these graphics where it's like.
Oh yeah, they compare laps. Yeah.
And then it overlaps. And the whole weekend they were saying, "Oh yeah, Mercedes aren't good down the straights. Red Bull are going to be flying down the straights." George's car was faster down the straights than Max's was. So I'm not really too sure. But to answer your question, do I think got it? Oh, I'm going to stick with George. I mean, I'd like to think that he got it, but yes, the fact that someone in that timing tower knows George might not have actually got it is phenomenal to me.
Well, I think Mercedes this weekend as a whole was very productive considering where they have been. So obviously George took P1, Hamilton was P7, moving into the race. Finished P3 and P4. Solid points for the team. A good race for them overall. George looked very disappointed at the end, and I think you could see why. You know, to go from pole to then losing it. I think what let George down this weekend is he had three drivers behind him that have more experience in these changing wet to dry conditions. Because I personally said it to my dad while I was watching it. I said, the thing is though, while the track starts to dry, Max and Lando and Lewis, who's on his way as well, and Alonso, they're so much more experienced in the wet to dry scenario. They will know when to put the power down, when they can start to put the power down a bit earlier. And you slowly saw the time at the top, the gap between second, third, and first start to slowly come down. And I don't think it was a bad weekend for Russell. I think that P3 is still very, very good. But I think you could tell he was disappointed because I think personally the win was there for him. Because, I mean, at one point he was, 7 seconds ahead? Something like that. He was quite far out in front.
But
yeah, I think it was just unfortunate.
I think it's a great way to bounce back for Mercedes. Obviously, this year they haven't been great at all, and obviously Lewis has really been struggling. George has as well, not as much because obviously we know Lewis is leaving at the end of the year, so obviously they're obviously going to favour George. They might not on paper say that, but it's kind of there to see. George is going to get all the upgrades first. Lewis is then going to get them a few weeks later. Obviously, that's what happened this weekend. George had the new front wing in Monaco. Lewis has now got it on his car. But I think as things go, I think Mercedes can be happy this weekend with their result. Obviously, George got pole, didn't quite win. Well, he didn't win the race. Obviously, coming home P3, still a good podium for him. And Lewis P4 starting P7. So I think Mercedes can be happy with their weekend. And if this is a resurgence from them, I think it can be quite exciting going in towards the end of the season. Because obviously we've said throughout the past 3 episodes now, we could actually have a title fight on our hands. Something could happen massively here. And the fact that Mercedes are now coming into play as well, hopefully this carries on for the rest of the season, so we can have 4 different constructors going into battle. Hopefully it can be a bit of a resurgence for Mercedes to push on and actually do even better. But a quick fact for you, and I know Ben will like this because he loves the old stats he does. This is the first time since Formula 2 that George Russell and Lando Norris have been on a podium together.
Oh, wow.
So the first time
cool.
2018. So, yeah, really interesting.
Got to talk about Mercedes. This is probably the big talking point from the weekend, and I'm sure the boys have gone into it or will go into it. But, you know, George Russell getting pole position, the fact that it was identical lap times for the qualifying is sensational because he said it first, he's on pole, is unbelievable. It's only happened 1 time previously and 3 drivers were involved. But I couldn't believe it. And qualifying was brilliant on the Saturday. I was really amazed with it. But Mercedes this weekend, Lewis has come out as well after and said that he's not happy with his weekend and that he basically was very self-critical and was like, I need to do better, which is very rare for him to come out and say that. And so I think fair play to him for owning up to it. It's a shame. I thought he was going to get a podium at one point. Obviously, Russell did start in P1 and has finished P3. I did predict that, but I didn't think he would hold on to the lead, and I thought Norris would be too strong, which they were in the end, but he had a chance of winning. And we know Mercedes are good in Spain and Barcelona. So if they can carry this through, this season just keeps on giving.
Well, Ollie, I'm going to give you 3. You have 9 teams now to pick from. Go ahead. What one do you want to pick next?
I think it's only fair to go and talk about Max. Obviously, we spoke and Red Bull, obviously. Obviously, we've spoken about George taking pole. So I think from going on first on the Saturday to first on the Sunday, I think it's a good way to not only do it in a, what's the word that we always used last year?
Chronological.
chronological, not only to do it in a chronological order, but also to do it in a way of who actually took victory over the weekend. However, there was victory on one side of the garage, and I don't even know what word to use for the other side of the garage. It was absolutely. Let's talk about Perez first, because obviously we'll get on to Max and what we
We'll
think about
start
his
with the
race.
bad and go to the good.
Yeah, I mean, oh my god,
You read.
you've just signed a new
somehow.
with the team that has given you a seat for the past 3 years now, and you repay them by going out in Q1 in one of the fastest cars on the grid. God, it's amazing that we can.
P15.
It's actually amazing that we don't have to say the fastest car on the grid anymore, because we actually don't
It's
know.
one of.
I don't know. I don't know who the fastest team on the grid is. Obviously, Max won the race and was joint pole technically, because they got the exact same time. But to come P15 in a Red Bull, I can't even wrap my brain around it. Like, it's so consistent now that he's going out in Q1. It's ridiculous. I actually saw
It's
another
inexcusable.
It's awful. Another another stat that obviously Ben's going to love this again, and I'm sure you've probably seen this. But Alex Albon qualified Logan Sargent 30-0 in his whole time across Formula One. Not a good look on Logan Sargent. But get this,
Jesus.
Logan Sargent has outqualified Perez 6 times.
No way.
In a year and a half. In probably one of the slowest cars on the grid compared to the fastest car on the grid. Logan Sargent has outqualified Sergio Perez 6 times.
And now you know why we said we were shocked at Perez staying. It's baffling. Like, it doesn't make sense. I mean, and then moving into the race. I mean, even the commentary team said it. Even the commentary team turned around and said, completely forgot. I can't remember. Was it Brundle who said it? Yeah, it was. Brundle turned around and said, "I've completely forgot that Perez was even in this race because he haven't seen him."
It was awful from bad to start. I mean, at first he collided with Gasly coming out of turn 2 and almost ended his race there and then, and Gasly's race there and then. And then he just decides, oh, you know what? I'm going to go and bin it into... I mean, I don't even know what happened. I haven't seen it. But did he bin it into a wall?
Yeah, so basically what happened was he was on the hards and went a bit wide going into turn 8, before the first DRS zone. It's in 2011 where Vettel lost it on the last lap against Button. That turn. Goes round, rear end, hard into the wall, completely destroys the rear wing. And what really should have happened was he should have stopped. He should have got out of the car there and then. But Red Bull didn't want a safety car for Max, so told him to carry on if he could keep it running. That obviously cost Red Bull a £25,000 fine. €25,000 fine, sorry, because the car was unsafe to drive. And also has given him a 3-place grid penalty. Which is, I mean, just a shocking weekend. And which made the whole contract renewal, I reckon, if you're Christian Horner seeing that, I think you've got to be thinking, we've given you a contract and this is what you do. Like, can we take that back? Because that is just the worst way to celebrate a contract renewal. Sorry.
I think the term that you use is probably the perfect way to sum up how his last, like, not year as in last year and then a bit of this year, but year as in last 365 days have been. It's been inexcusable. Like, his performances in one of the best cars ever made last season in Formula One, and then one of the best cars this season in Formula One. It's just like, it's not acceptable to be putting in these performances. Obviously, at the start of the year, we were saying, you know what, he seems to have got his mojo back a little bit. He seems to be pushing through the field, getting up there, getting some good points. Obviously, he was going 1-2 with Max a fair bit at the start of the season. to it now being same as the back end of last year, it's just like you can't do this in one of the fast cars in the grid. But I think we'll leave that where it is, and we'll save the Perez slander for next week as well. And I think Ben has a little bit to say on it, so I'll probably insert it here.
I mean, I heard Karun say, I'm glad that people are starting to say it as well in the media. They renewed his contract simply because it would make Max happy. If you don't agree with that, you're in denial. It's the truth. He doesn't bring anything to Red Bull other than letting Max win. That's basically, he doesn't challenge him. Yes, he can have the odd good race here and there on the street tracks, but he's just not delivering. He's not even getting out of Q1, and he's now not even finishing a race. He's really not good enough. I'm sorry, Checo, but it's just not. I really vouched for him to get that Red Bull seat in the Racing Point in 2020. And I was glad when he did, but unfortunately now his time is up.
On to Max Verstappen. Now, we've said last year and this year, if he wins, we want to see a battle. If he wins, we want to see a race where we can actually say, you know what, you've done it on merit. Fair play. It's not, you haven't won it just because you're in the fast car and you've run away with it. This weekend, again, same as Imola, another race where we can go, you know what, I mean, from my point of view, anyway, I can look at this race and go, you know what, Max fully deserves that race win.
Yeah, I personally agree with you. I think he done really, really well. Had pressure from Lando for a bit, overtook George, had pressure from Lando. You know, I made a couple of mistakes here and there, but I think everyone did. And yeah, it just, like I said before, you do have to start to put Max in some of in the top 5 of all time. And I think, again, there's another reason this weekend how he showed it, because of just how well he drove. You know, he was setting, as soon as they changed to dries, it was just purple after purple after purple for Max. And to keep that sort of pace in those sort of conditions it's so impressive. And I think the victory was well and truly deserved. It really, really was.
And that, of course, is his 50th race victory now. And obviously, it was technically, as I said, joint pole in a way because they set at the exact same time. But he qualified P2 because he set his lap after George. But
is
P2,
his 50th? I thought he had like 58 or something like that.
I believe it's his 50th. I will quickly check. But yes, I do believe that's his 50th race win in Formula One. I think that's what I saw on Twitter. But yeah, 50 victories now in Formula One. 50 victories in the last 75 races.
Wow.
So there you go.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's ridiculous. So out of the last 75
races, and he's won
25 of them. But yeah, no, I think full credit to Max.
Yeah,
I think full credit to Max again. It was a phenomenal drive. I mean, yeah, I think it's. He seemed excited as well by the win again. Like we said this, we want to see a bit of emotion. We want to see some actual celebration and some joy from him. But yeah, to hear a little bit of that passion again is kind of like, you know what, he knew he had to fight for that win.
He had to work for it. He had to work for it.
He did fight and he did win. So fair play to Max. I think he put up a valiant effort yesterday and was well worthy of another race win for the season. I think he's now just over 60 points ahead in the championship as well, ahead of Charles Leclerc still.
He's on 194. Charles is on 138, and Norris is on 131.
So yeah, very close. So, but yeah,
we had a title fight because, you know, going into this weekend, Leclerc was only 30 odd points.
I think so. Yeah. So it was close. It wasn't a title fight. Leclerc couldn't have overtaken him in the standings, but it was like, okay, it's closer than it's been in a long time.
And then it is all unravelled in the space of 1 week. I mean, talk about going from highs to lows. Ferrari's disastrous weekend, and it all started from quali. Didn't it? All
I
started from
mean,
quali.
both of them going out in Q2 was a real. Well, I say it was a real shock. If you watched FP3 and all the practice sessions across the weekend, the Ferraris were nowhere to be seen. I mean, obviously, you can always take practice with a pinch of salt, but going into quali, they were nowhere, absolutely nowhere. They qualified in I want to say P11, P12, I
It
believe,
was, yes,
and
just on the cusp.
then in the race. Oh my god! I mean, that's the thing. I don't think we even have to talk about the two drivers separately. I think we can talk about them just as a whole. Leclerc and Sainz, both of them. I mean, Leclerc's obviously wasn't
Yeah,
himself. I think it was an engine issue, was it not, that caused him to
an
retire from?
engine issue. Yes, well, it was an engine issue that they tried to fix, couldn't, and then after he got lapped in a Ferrari. It's crazy. He got lapped, and I turned around and said, "It's pointless running. You might as well save all the components." Science as well. What happened to Science was spun. Just again an error. Spun on the same chicane that Perez did. I think like a lap or two later, and then spun backwards onto the track and tagged Logan Sargent.
Alex.
It was Alex Albon. Sorry, because Logan, another team with a DNF, was
Yeah,
Logan Sargent who brought out the
we'll,
first
we'll
safety car.
get on to that. We'll get on to that in a minute. Before we finish after we finish speaking about Ferrari, which I think the way to top it off is you've illustrated it perfectly, and Ben said it in the TikTok as well. The fact of what a way to go from hero to zero. You've gone from winning a race, your driver winning his home race in the most prestigious event in Formula One, to a double DNF just 2 weeks later. It's an excuse. Another instance of it's inexcusable. I mean, obviously Leclerc's wasn't really his fault; it was an engine issue. But Sainz, it's kind of getting to the point now where at the start of the season we were all kind of like, oh, you know what, this Sainz villain era is really looking tasty. It's now like, mate, what are you doing?
Yeah, he's not doing himself any favours when it comes to like securing a seat when he's doing stuff like this. But yeah, a double DNF, it's shocking.
I think.
And like I said just now, a double DNF for Williams as well. Albon's wasn't his fault, but if we're starting
to say quickly before we get onto the race, quite an impressive qualifying from the both of them. Both of them into Q2. So it was quite impressive.
Yeah.
To start with, it was kind of like, okay, this Williams could actually do something here.
Williams have always done well around Canada because of the high speed nature of the circuit. So it was looking promising for them.
Until race day came along. Now, I don't know how much of the race in depth you watched. Obviously, I didn't really get the chance to because I was working. I had it on my phone just by the side, so I didn't watch it fully. But I remember catching a glimpse of an onboard of Logan Sargent, and I think it was across the first 10 laps. And oh my God, he could not keep control of the car.
Double DNF as well for Williams. Not good, really not good for them in the slightest. I really love James Vowles, and as well, it looks as though Carlos Sainz is going to go to Williams, which is crazy, by the way. Race winner going to Williams is nuts. But yeah, really not good. Unfortunate for Albon because he got collected by Sainz, future teammates maybe. But Sargent, he just can't help himself. In the wall again. In fact, he crashed twice in the race. He was lucky to get away with the first one. I think it's time that he hangs his gloves up, I'm afraid.
Again, like I said to you, the experience in the wet, it's a massive thing to have in Formula One. And I mean, we talk about contracts and stuff like that, and people staying who shouldn't be staying. He's not done himself any favours this weekend, has he?
Not at all.
I think it'll be very soon. I mean, is it confirmed that Sargent's leaving at the end of the season?
I don't think it's confirmed, but I think the fact of James Vowles is now speaking so openly about other drivers potentially coming into the team, like Carlos Sainz has mentioned, it kind of confirms it anyway.
yeah, it's interesting. I think that with how the accident happened, it's just again a mistake. Like a lot of drivers, a lot of unforced errors this weekend, down to the conditions and stuff like that. But yeah, just a weird weekend in terms of just the most random sort of accidents, the most random set of accidents. I mean, Albon, extremely unlucky, could do nothing. So, a bit like Hulkenberg last week in Monaco, saw the gap, went for it, got tagged, unlucky. But yeah, double DNF for, I think Albon was running in the points as well,
But I believe he
possibly.
was. Well, if he was up near signs, he must have been, no?
I think it was the bottom end of like the points, so it might have been between like maybe 8th and 12th, somewhere between then. Might have been in there somewhere.
But you mentioned it was reminiscent of Hulkenberg's and Magnussen's incident with Perez in Monaco. What a start from the Haas! I mean, obviously they were the only team to put their cars on wet tyres. But within three or four laps, Magnussen had gone up from 14th place to 4th in 3 laps. Obviously, all the other cars were on intermediates. The Haas was on wets. Obviously, they had to pit later on, so obviously they dropped back through the field. But oh my god! At one point, I thought if it carries on raining, Magnussen could honestly be on for a win here because he was going through the field.
I mean, yeah, he ended up being, I think, just over a second behind Norris in the space of 5 to 6 laps, and it was absolutely incredible. I mean, yeah, we can talk about it now, but you look back at it, you think, okay, but was it worth it because of where they ended up? I think they finished in 13th and 14th, or somewhere around there. So, you know, the safety car didn't help with that because they came in. It was so frustrating for them because they came in as the crossover happened for them, like they had to do it. And then literally, I think it must have been about just under 6 laps later, the safety car comes out and just gutting for what could have been for them. But I mean, the big part of Haas's weekend was, I mean, I sent it to our group chat. Kevin, I think it was, it was Hulkenberg. I mean, we talked about reaction saves last week with the Pato Award one and the Hajar one at Monaco. How on earth did Nico Hulkenberg dodge Yuki Tsunoda in the middle of the track? For those of you who haven't seen it, it's the chicane just before the slow hairpin towards the end of the lap. Tsunoda loses it over the grass, spins, also misses the wall somehow, but goes straight back across the track. And I honestly think Nico Hulkenberg is less than 10 centimetres away from making contact, just smashing straight into the front of Tsunoda. It's incredible. We talk about these racing drivers having cat-like instincts. That's superhuman. That's incredible.
I mean, it shows you why they are where they are, I guess. I mean, the fact that you can be going, you just come out of a chicane, so you're probably not foot to the floor, but you're still going at probably 70, 80 miles an hour, maybe even quicker than that, maybe even 100 miles an hour. But to come out of that chicane and miss a car sliding across the track by what can only be described as that much is ridiculous.
With one dry line on slick tyres as well is crazy. It's insane.
But,
I think there's, 2 teams that we can cover very quickly. Kick Sauber and Aston Martin. 2 very quiet weekends.
Yeah. No, yeah, very quiet. I mean, Stroll actually looked quite punchy. at points, which you'll probably hate to admit, but he didn't actually look as bad as he usually is.
I think it's just a quiet weekend for Alonso. Done well, held Hamilton up a bit, and then the safety car, he got jumped in the pit lane by Hamilton. But yeah, I think as well, the Saubers just, I mean, Zhou binned it twice in practice in roughly the same place, I think. A very quiet weekend for them, same as Aston Martin. Aston Martin just putting points on the table, just taking up the scraps at the bottom end of the field. Now, I don't know whether you've seen this, Ollie, but obviously what's happened with Alpine? Did you see the drama that happened towards the end of the race between Ocon and Alpine when it comes to position swapping?
I absolutely love it. The fact of there's so much bitterness and controversy now going on with that team. And so for anyone that doesn't know, Ocon was in front of Gasly, chasing down Ricciardo, and was asked, right, Esteban, you've had your shot at trying to get him. Let Pierre go past. Let's try and push and get him at the end of the race, towards the end of the race. Ocon then came back to his race engineer and said, right, okay, at the end of the race, am I going to be let back past Pierre to try and to have my position back? And they said, they didn't actually say yes, but they didn't say no. They just said, I can't remember what they said, but they said...
His engineer said, we're going to work on it. We'll work on it.
Yeah. And then, obviously...
I'd say what was good, though... Go on, say your bit. Go on.
I was just going to say, obviously, he wasn't then let back past, obviously. Gasly then took... Was it P10 Gasly took? Or was it P9?
Yeah, Gasly got the point. P9, I think.
P9. So Gasly got the 2 points, Pierre got the 1, and all in the media pen, Pierre or Esteban was not a happy bunny.
What was good about it, though, was you can hear on the radio that his engineer understood wrong, because in the on the cooldown lap you could hear them go. You hear Ocon saying, "I don't want to talk about it. I'm fuming. And his engineer goes, "Yeah, I understand. We'll talk after. We're sorry. I'm sorry. We'll talk after. I understand you're annoyed." Because I think even his engineer's probably gone, that's a kick in the face. That is a kick in the face. That's rough.
I mean, it must be a horrible feeling as a driver when you're told, okay, move over, let your teammate past, when you've put in all the hard work to be where you are, and then not receive the accreditation for the position that you're in. So, I mean, I do feel for Esteban, and obviously it's one of those things that you don't really want to see happen in Formula One, because it's like you want drivers to be in the positions that they've earned rather than been literally just given.
Yeah, fully.
I do understand it as a point of, yeah, you're not our driver anymore, we don't care. Because I'm sure at some point this season, Mercedes are probably going to do the same with Lewis and George. So...
But I don't think that will go down as well as that.
No.
I don't think that'll be as easy. Team had a very good weekend in terms of point scoring. Obviously, RB done well. Tsunoda had a really good qualifying and a really good first two quarters of the race.
Not even that. I think I'd say he pretty much had a really good race up until the final 15 laps.
Up until that spin, which really took it away from him, which was so unfortunate. But Ricciardo got some good points on the board for the team. Again, proving the doubters. I know you don't like it, but proving the doubters are... Because what a way to shut up the critic. P8. Not bad.
No,
Not
really,
bad
really
at all.
And I mean, obviously, it was P6 in quali. Was it P5? P5 or P6? Because it was behind Alonso. P5, I think. Am I right in saying that?
Yes.
I don't even know.
You might be.
But
I
yeah,
think he might be.
after he qualified either P5 or P6, neither of us can remember because busy working lives. He said eat about certain comments made by Jacques Villeneuve. So, which was quite interesting. But yeah, he had very few words to respond, but I don't think he needs to use words. His
I
performance,
think he done enough. Yeah, I think I agree with you there. He fully done enough.
and
And I
as
think the
my
last two.
as my agenda against Bottas last season, I have to throw my hands up where a driver's proved me wrong, and Danny Rick this weekend you've proved me wrong. But I cannot wait to see next time you fail, and I will be there. I will be there.
I think the last team to go over, unless I'm forgetting anyone, is the most bright papaya orange car on the grid. The two incredibly talented young drivers of Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. Again, McLaren are just there's just something about that McLaren car that just you look at it and you think, go on, just and Norris is you watch Norris, and like I said to you about having that ability to drive in the changing conditions between wet and dry. Norris is. I was watching Norris. It's like I'm watching a 35-year-old.
I think
Oscar as well. It's like with Oscar, I'm watching somebody who's been in Formula One for the last 8 years. It's incredible. Obviously, Oscar fell away a bit at the end because just because of the pure pace of the Mercedes towards the
well,
end. But overall, a good weekend for him.
You said he fell away. He was still P5, which is a brilliant
Exactly,
result.
that's what I was going to say. At P5 again, and don't take it away from him. At one point, yes, he was P3, but don't take it away from him. Incredible weekend, still P5. But Norris just continues to really. I mean, I fully hold my hands up when I made that. Also, how was that blown up?
I know.
How did that blow up on TikTok?
I didn't even realise 10.8 thousand views on that one TikTok.
11. It's on 11 now.
God,
11,
wow.
I think.
Well, thank you to the TikTok.
When did that blow up? All of a sudden, the video of me saying Lando Norris will never be a race winner because he can't handle the pressure of starting near the front has just eaten away at me, and I am left every week going, he might win. If he does win this, do I deactivate my social media? Do I take a break? Do I write an apology letter to someone? What do I do here? And I just watch it. I honestly think that, like I said, all he needs is just 3 wins on the bounce. If he can get 2 wins on the bounce and gets a bit of luck with Max finishing a bit lower, wow, we could be in it because he's 7 points behind Leclerc in third. He's in third, 7 points behind Leclerc, and he's 60 odd behind Max now. It's still still doable.
I mean, I think just speak on the team as a whole. I think Ben's prediction of McLaren are going to win the constructors. I think he's hit the nail on the head.
Well, with Perez doing what Perez is doing, I mean, Max is having a hard carry right now.
So I think, as a way to round off the weekend itself in Formula One, I think from what we've seen, I mean, it was a brilliant race weekend. I mean, I didn't really get to see a lot of it because obviously work life, but from what I did manage to see, phenomenal racing. Everyone that I've spoken to said it's been the best race in a while, and we said Miami was brilliant as well. So, I mean, hopefully there's more of this to come. I mean, it's already shaping up to be a better season than last season, that's for sure.
Just for the racing itself, the entertainment-wise.
I think it's brilliant. I think as long as this carries on, we have got a great season on our hands. So I think that is probably the best way to round up. And I think now we shall get into a part you've been looking for, the predictions.
Now, as always, we shouldn't do this because it does ruin it a little bit for us. But I know towards the end of the race, we all sit there with the Instagram open, looking at each other's results, looking at each other's predictions, just to think, oh, have I got that? And at one point, again, like, was it last that Ben got the? Was it China? When
It
did
was Imola.
Imola? Like Imola, three of us had very similar, and at one point had all had a double pointer. At one point, you had it at the start of the race. Ben had it through the middle, and did I have it at the end, Ollie? You know, just
You did. So for the second, well, actually, before we get onto that, I'll let you celebrate in a second. But I think for the first time that we've done it this year, none of us have got a point for qualifying. Qualifying,
yeah, I think
has got any points, which is we are frauds. We're a Formula One podcast, and we didn't get any correct. None of the top five correct.
Well, I don't think any of us saw Russell getting pole, both Ferraris bottling it, and I don't think any of us saw that coming. I also don't think we realised Hamilton would bottle it as well.
Yeah,
it was quite a weird quality.
But going into the race, you obviously are now the second time achiever of getting the top five of a weekend correct. Now, I don't know how that feels. Obviously, Ben made it very apparent.
Don't get me wrong.
How does it feel?
Don't get me wrong. When Lewis was in third, happy. I was like sick. And then I was like, I need Russell to get him. I need Russell to get him. I need Russell to. And when Russell overtook him, I was like, oh my God, please. No safety car. No safety car. No mistakes. No yellow flags. Just please hold it out. And when they crossed the line that far, I was like, oh my God. I have just blown the predictions championship wide open. Like with a click of my finger. And yeah, such a good feeling. Such a good feeling. Cannot wait to hear where I stand on the leaderboard now.
So, obviously, I will read where we each got our points from. So you obviously got the amazing 10 points for the race. Obviously, top five, we always do double. So you got all five of them correct. So Verstappen first, Norris second, Russell third, Hamilton fourth, Piastri fifth.
Can we quickly mention as well the controversy that slightly surrounds that?
Yes, we can. I think we should. Otherwise, Ben will be very.
Because I know. So just to give context, let me say it from my point of view because you'll understand. I had worked on Saturday a 9 till 6 shift. I had an hour break at midday and quali was at 3. I hadn't seen anything until I checked my phone at the end of my shift and Ben had put in the chat, Will, quali predictions. It was
Sunday morning. I think
Sunday
it was.
morning, and it was predictions, yeah. And I hadn't seen at all. I can't remember what it was. I can't remember what I was doing, but I hadn't seen quali. And Ben asked, no, it was Saturday night. Ben asked for the race predictions after quali, but I hadn't seen the quali results. So I think I put Max Leclerc, Norris, Piastri Sainz, then saw Ferraris went out in Q2. I messaged the group chat saying, guys, please allow it. I haven't seen quali. Can I change my prediction, please? I've literally only just watched the quali results. And Ben wasn't having it. He gave the final vote to you. You said yes. And then I even put a message at the bottom saying, by the way, the controversy if I get 5 out of 5. It was written in the stars, and I need to make sure I'm so next time because I know this will never happen again. I'll never get that opportunity again.
I even said, I will grant you this one time, but you are walking a fine line, Mr. Smith. And I wish now that I said, no, not having it. Because looking at this table, because looking at this table, from my point of view, it's not looking good, Brev. It is not looking good.
Leclerc
So,
and Sainz. Oh my god.
to read you what we all got. So Ben, obviously you got the top five. So Verstappen, Norris, Russell, Hamilton, Piastri. Ben got 3 points. So I got Verstappen, Norris, and Russell. And I got 2 points, getting Hamilton and Piastri. So in third place is me on 29 points. So I'm still the only one yet to get double points so far in this prediction.
Before you say who's in first and second, please say what first and second are on in terms of points gaps. What's the point gap between first and second?
The second place is 36. And first place is 37. So it's close.
Okay.
It's really close.
Okay.
However, for you, Mr. William Smith, you are in second place, and Ben is still in first.
Really?
Ben's on 37, you're on 36, I'm on 29. Which, if you think about it, it's quite interesting. Because if I now get 10 points, right? Say if I get 10 points in quali in the next race, and you two both get 1. I then go first. So it is still wide open.
If someone gets a 40-pointer from a sprint weekend, that's it.
Oh, it's over.
You win. Again, I think if someone gets 40 points for a sprint weekend, you should just win automatically. Because that's incredible.
But yeah, I think the table's shaping up massively. I think we've had quite a few changes now. Obviously, I think Ben's been at the front for pretty much the whole time. But we've had a lot of chopping and changing, especially between us two. But now, obviously, you're up there fighting with Ben. I could be there if I actually get something right for once. But no, this is quite fun. Not only is the racing getting more entertaining, but this is now how many rounds in? We're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
9.
8, 10. We're 10 rounds into the season, and it's starting to look a bit tasty. So there you go. That's our predictions table, and hopefully going forward, I can get 10 points because at the minute I am slacking. So yeah, that's the predictions done for this week, and we have one more thing to mention. So obviously this weekend, there was IndyCar as well. It was in Road America, which is a phenomenal circuit, by the way. Have you ever driven it round on a set course or Forza Horizon or Gran Turismo?
I have, yeah. I have. Road America is very, very good.
Fun to drive. I just want to congratulate quickly Linus Lundqvist getting his first ever podium in the sport. And, well, one major talking point is a massive crash from our Indy 500 winner, Joseph Newgarden. Now, Will, I'm not sure if you've seen this. You might have.
I did see some impact.
He crashed going 190 miles an hour, I believe, into one of the walls. It's a ridiculously fast circuit. And if you go onto the IndyCar Instagram or Twitter, you'll be able to find the video. It's a horrific crash. Luckily, Joseph was fine, no injuries sustained at all.
Walked away from it, didn't he?
But I just
which is incredible.
My brother told me this just before we came on air. The impact or the G-force of the crash, 95 Gs. That crash was
That's
recorded.
more than Max in Silverstone. Wow.
That's ridiculous. But yeah, so IndyCar again, I mean, it was lashing it down with rain in practice for the series. And obviously, as I said, Linus Lundqvist getting his first ever pole in the sport, so congratulations to him. And also on Will Power for getting his first win in, I think it's 2.5 years. I mean, it's such a great name.
It's brilliant.
But it was a Penske 1-2-3. I think it was Will Power came first, Newgarden second, and McLaughlin third. So a great drive from the Penske team. Not the most favourable team on the grid, but a great result for the team. But I think I'll just quickly, while I remind myself of it, a lot of controversy going on off the grid now in IndyCar. Obviously, we had the stuff at the start of the season with Newgarden and Team Penske and their push-to-pass issues or scandal. And now to go with Juncos Hollinger Racing, I think they're called. I don't know if you've seen about this, Will, but after the Detroit Grand Prix in IndyCar last weekend, Augustin Canapino and Teo Pourchaire had a collision. Now, Augustin Canapino's fan base is known in motorsport Twitter to be very hostile. There have been a few instances of this before, and Teo Pourchaire was receiving loads and loads and loads of death threats from Canapino fans, which is just ridiculous. We don't want to see that at all in the sport. It's not acceptable, whatever the circumstances. And it actually impacted. Well, Teo Pourchaire made a statement saying, "Look, I've received death threats from doing this crash. I didn't intend to crash into Canapino. It was a wet track. The track was slippy. We ended up colliding. I apologise for my actions, but these aren't acceptable." Zach Brown has even commented on the issue as well on Twitter, saying, "Yeah, this is horrible to see. I don't know why we're doing it." And then a few days later, it was taken one step further, so much so that McLaren and Juncos Hollinger Racing have a partnership. They have now parted ways after the incident. And to go one step further, Canapino has been dropped by Juncos Hollinger Racing. So the whole world of IndyCar has just been rocked by this one crash in a race which contained hundreds of crashes, not hundreds, but tens of crashes. And it's really not what you want to see in the sport. Obviously, the action taken by the teams and the drivers and the I don't think IndyCar themselves have actually said too much on it, but the fact that it's been sorted out between the teams and the drivers themselves, I guess it's a good thing, but it's really not what we want to see. So unfortunate for Pourchaire to be receiving death threats, and we don't want to see that at all in the sport. But onto a brighter note, and something that hasn't happened in 14 years, I'm sure you would have seen this, Will, and Ben's got a little something to say on it, which I'll put in after this segment. But former W Series winner Jamie Chadwick became the first female race winner in IndyCar NXT in 14 years. She got pole position on the Saturday and took the race win on the Sunday. It put up a tremendous defence against her rivals. I'm not too sure of the drivers' names, but she put up a tremendous defence in quite a tricky race around a really hard circuit. So she's only 26 years old. As Martin Brundle, I think it was, that said on Twitter, the F1 ladder has really lost a star in the ranks of Jamie Chadwick, and it just goes to show that she has got the skill. And congratulations to her being the first female race winner in 14 years in IndyCar NXT. So congratulations to Jamie, and I'll put the clip of Ben saying his congratulations in here.
And also as well, just finally away from Formula One, sometimes we've dived into other categories like Formula 2 with Ollie, Formula 3 and IndyCar as well. Well, Indy Next Series, a huge shout out must go to Jamie Chadwick, the young British female driver. She was absolutely incredible in the W Series way back when, and now she's bossing it out there. She got pole position, she converted that to a win with a red flag as well. Seriously well done. We love to see Brits doing well, and we love more motorsport in general. So absolutely fantastic. The Williams Academy driver as well. She should be really proud, and she's definitely the best that there is out there. So fantastic. Well done to her.
But from me and Will today,
I've just let you go on a tangent there for the past 5 minutes on IndyCar because I know how much you love it.
I've just turned into Ben for the past 5-10 minutes. So, but
I mean, you just know so much about IndyCar, and I do, and I don't know anything about IndyCar. I fully say that now, so it's nice to just let you just get it all out. But the big talking point this week, Ollie, actually, just before we end, it's race week. But it's not any normal race week. It's Le Mans race week.
Oh my god, I totally forgot. My brain went blank. I was like, no, it's not. What are you on about?
So,
But yeah,
to quickly, me and Ollie are headed to France together. We'll be meeting up. We'll be making content. I am doing a day-to-day vlog of what I get up to. I'm leaving at 3 a.m. on Wednesday morning to get to the Eurostar at 6. So that will not be fun. I'll be in France. Eating a baguette, sipping wine by about 6 o'clock in the afternoon. On Wednesday, just after the second practice day. Ollie, when are you getting there? Thursday?
I'm getting there Thursday, yep, so I'm going back to mine on Wednesday. I've got work all day tomorrow, which is great. So I've done my packing this evening. And
I highly recommend to anyone, if you have Sky Sports, put it on Eurosport. If you're doing if you're doing stuff over the weekend and you want some background noise or anything like that, you have it for 24 hours. Just, if you want to understand, we say F1 is the pinnacle of motorsport. If you want to understand what it takes to be a racing driver and the pinnacle of some drivers, like the ability, and I'll say this now, I think some of these drivers have more talent than F1 drivers because of the strain their bodies go through. All of them race for about 8 hours overall, and it's incredible. So if you aren't doing anything over the weekend, I highly recommend watching it because it's just incredible. But yeah, that is the Canadian GP done with
we'll
a different. In 2 weeks, yeah, with a bit of a different format going from team to team, but I kind of like how we've done that.
yeah,
I like how we've done that, going from team to team.
Obviously, I think we could probably maybe work around it a bit more. So then we could make it a bit more free-flowing and maybe go in chronological order of the constructors. But I think, nonetheless, I think it's been a good episode. Unfortunately, Ben's not been here to live it with us, but I'm sure he'll be very happy that he has remained top of the championship in our predictions board. But from me and Will this week, and me and Will only, that is another episode of the Trackside Podcast over and done with. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time for another episode. See you then.